Part 1 of this video started with trad publishing pros and cons. Welcome to Part 2.
Which brings us over to independent authoring pros. Independent authoring pro number 1. You make more money per book. This is a royalty thing. So if you're going through CreateSpace, which is an Amazon company, you're going to make approximately 35 to 70% on every book sale. The lowest that you can make, though, is 35%. And that is already triple what you're making if you're a new author with a large publishing house, and 1.5 times what you're making if you're Stephen King. Pretty big number difference. However, when we get into the cons, we'll talk about why that number isn't the huge, obvious difference that has sent all traditionally published authors over to independent publishing immediately. There's a catch. Pro number 2 for independent publishing: complete creative control. Everything that happens to your book is entirely up to you. You hire people to do the parts that you can't do. I hired a cover artist because my art skills are crap. I hired a cover designer because while I'm getting much better at graphic design, I wanted it to be as professional as possible. Also, I recommend hiring an editor very, very highly, but you control 100% what your book looks like, feels like, how it's presented to its audience. Pro number 3 for independent authoring: 0 gatekeepers. No one's going to tell you that your work isn't marketable. No one's going to tell you that you can't sell it. No one's going to tell you that you can't click publish. It means that everybody who wants to publish a novel can. And that's powerful. Think of the people who have been marginalized by traditional publishing. Essentially, traditional publishing has been run by old white men for a long time. What have we been missing with only those people calling the shots? Independent publishing pro number 4. You control your price points and where you sell. When you're traditionally publishing, you have 0 say in how much your book costs. 0. Even big name authors like Stephen King, etc., don't get to control the price points on their books. When you publish independently, that is 100% your choice. Want to make the book free for a day? You can do that. Want to make the book free forever? You can do that. Want to make the book half price for a week? You can do that. Any kind of sale you want to run, it's entirely up to you. It's entirely under your control, and you can change things pretty darn quickly if you go through CreateSpace. Independent publishing pro number 5. You've kept all the rights. You can do whatever you want with the series, or the book, or the whatever else. So the thing is, we talked about a con in traditional publishing is that you have to sell your rights to the story to someone else. That means you've sold some of your creative control. We already talked about how that shows up in the book cover, the formatting, and other things. But it also means that a traditional publisher can tell you, guess what? I know you plan to write 5 books in this series, but we're stopping it at 3, or we're stopping it at 1. That's it. You're stuck. And you can't just start independently publishing the rest because they have the rights to that series. Obviously, I'm harping on series because this is more relevant if you're writing multiple books. But the truth is, this can be a problem even if you're just publishing 1 book. So let's say they printed 20,000 copies the first time and sold most of them, but not all of them, over however many year run. Whatever reason, they just decided they weren't that excited about your book, and boom, they stop it. But let's say your contract sells them the rights for the next 10 years. If you can't get out of that, that's it. Your book is done. Anyone who has a copy has it, and anyone who doesn't never will. If you are publishing independently, that can never happen. The only thing that affects you is how many people see your book and buy it to begin with. Which takes us to cons for independent publishing. Con number 1 for independent publishing: you have to do your own marketing and publicity. But you've got to find ways to get your book in front of readers, because if you don't put it in front of readers, no one's going to pick it up. Let me just say this right now. Putting a book on a shelf in a bookstore, putting a book on Amazon will not make it sell. Putting a book on a shelf in a bookstore, putting a book on Amazon will not make it sell. If you aren't doing something to make people buy it, no one's going to buy it. This is by far and away, when I talk to my fellow independent publishers, everyone's biggest con. It's hard to get good at it, and it would be easier to pay someone else to do it for you. And if you can afford that, I recommend it. All right, independent publishing con number 2. You have to do everything yourself. We just talked about the marketing and publicity, but that's not the half of it. You also have to orchestrate all the other bits. Honestly, for some people, this is fun. I like it. But for some people, this is terrible and overwhelming, and they want to have nothing to do with it. You have to hire your cover artist. You have to hire your editor. You have to hire your designer. Hire a formatter if you can't do it yourself. All of these pieces you have to orchestrate and make come together in a timely fashion to produce a book. And if you can't do that, then you might want to look at traditional publishing. Because honestly, that's one of the big things about independent publishing. Everything is on you. Independent publishing con number 3. You have to pay for all the people you hire. In one of my next episodes, I'm going to be talking about Kickstarters and how those work and how to run them, and they are a super useful tool to keep you from going into debt trying to publish your book. But there is certainly cost involved in publishing. People who publish at zero cost to themselves may not be doing the best job, unless they're super lucky and have a professional editor who's willing to work for them for free, professional cover artists who are willing to work for them for free, and professional formatters who are willing to work for them for free. And if that is your situation, then congratulations, you have won the cosmic lottery, and you may now independently publish well for free. Good job. But if that's not the case, then yeah, you're going to have to pay for this stuff, and it can get expensive. Crowdfunding is a great way to deal with that, but it's not the only way to deal with it. You can just pay out of pocket if you can afford it, and you'll probably make your money back if you do a really good job. But that said, those costs exist and are something that you don't have to deal with traditional publishing. Traditional publishing's whole purpose is that someone else does that stuff for you, pays for that stuff for you, and then you're earning them and yourself money back over time. Independent publishing con number 4. You have to recognize that distribution is on you. Your books will not magically appear in bookstores across the US. They'll be available on Amazon if you go through CreateSpace, or pretty much anywhere. And then through Amazon, there are expanded distribution options, but you are either going to have to convince someone that they should order copies of your books, which is difficult to do, or to hand deliver copies and sell them on consignment. The thing that's not going to happen if you are independently publishing is that you are not going to wake up one morning, walk into a Barnes & Noble in a town you don't live in, and see your book sitting on a shelf. Unless you've gone bestseller, in which case, congratulations, and then you might just see that happen anyway. Independent publishing con number 5. When people ask you at parties what you do for a living and you say you're a writer, they'll ask you where you publish, and you'll say you do it yourself. Honestly, I think this is a pro. I like being able to say that I'm an independent publisher, and I'm confident and proud of that fact, but there are lots of people who will look at you and go, "Oh, you self-published?" Dealing with that stigma, granted, it's reducing. Try reminding people of indie music and how popular that is now. It's the same sort of deal. Lots of people are making their own records these days and selling them, and no one bats an eyelash anymore. That's because the music industry is about 10 years ahead of the publishing industry in terms of independent production. People who don't know anything about publishing at all are likely to be really excited the moment you tell them that you can get your book on Amazon. People who know something about the publishing industry are likely to have a bias towards traditional publishing if they don't know that much about it, because they don't understand that independent publishing is really becoming its own thing, and they'll still think of indie publishing as self-publishing and assign to it the idea of a vanity project. You wrote a novel and you couldn't get anyone else to take it, so you just decided to publish it yourself. In reality, what it comes down to is that independent publishing and traditional publishing are just 2 different paths to the same destination. In conclusion, I gave you 5 pros and 5 cons for each form of publishing, going trad, going indie. And in truth, there are a number more pros and cons on each side. This is a nuanced discussion. And when it comes down to it, I think it's just a personal decision. I obviously am a little bit biased towards indie because that's the route I chose to go. I never ever submitted my novels to traditional publication. I just decided to go indie because I wanted to keep the rights, I wanted to keep creative control, and I wanted to be in charge of all the little details of my book. That's the kind of author I am. It may not be the kind of author you are. There are lots of authors that aren't like that. There are some people who are so thrown off by the idea of having to do their own promotions and marketing that they would gladly sell all the rights to their book to someone else to not have to deal with it. And that's totally understandable and completely legitimate. Independent publishing is a hard, hard job. It's a lot more work than just writing books. And if you sign up for that, know that that's what's happening. This isn't a competition between indie and trad, and it's not a competition even between authors within each category. We're all in this together. It's a big, muddled mess. The publishing industry is changing constantly and will continue to change for the foreseeable future. So I would say make your choice, settle in, and you can always change later. Lots of people are having a lot of success with independent publishing. Lots of people are having a lot of success with trad publishing. Lots of people are not having success with either form of publishing. It's all kind of a giant crapshoot at this point. Get informed, do as much research as you can, and make the decision that works for you personally, because really, that's all that matters. See you next time in Independent Authoring with Virginia McLean. Next episode, I'm hoping, will be something about Kickstarters.